Story 1. The night we went in was colder than the forecast ever promised. When the dispatcher buzzed the call out, "Lost 3 hikers, last seen at Trail Junction 14B, low visibility, temperatures -8 degrees Celsius. The incident command, IC, went straight to code red. I was the SAR team's lead medic, so I was already in the deconfliction brief, mapping the search grid with the Rangers and confirming our muster points. The plan was simple: sector sweep, thermal imaging, and a secondary rescue line for extraction. We touched down at the base of the ridge just as the wind began to howl through the spruce. The GPS showed us at grid 3-4, the last known coordinates of the party. The night's limited light was a thin veil. The only illumination came from our headlamps and the occasional flare burst from the incident commander's helicopter. I could feel my breath fogging the lens of my night vision goggles, a reminder that the cold had already seeped into my bones. The first sweep was clean. No footprints, no broken branches, just the pristine white that the recent snowfall had left behind. The Rangers' K9 unit, a German shepherd named Atlas, stopped suddenly at a half-buried rock and began barking low, a sound that seemed to echo off the trees and into my own head. When I knelt to check, a thin sheet of blood smeared a snowbank, a dark smear that didn't belong to any animal injury. The scent was human, metallic, and fresh. We called for a secondary search line. "Alpha Team, proceed to Sector 5A, establish a 2-meter spacing pattern, and report any anomalies," the IC instructed. My chest tightened. I was the liaison for triage, the one who would have to decide who got the limited medical supplies if we found survivors. 2 minutes later, Atlas's barking turned into a low, frantic whine. He stood over a shallow depression, nose pressed against the snow. My flashlight caught a pair of gloved hands that had been bound with rope, wrists twisted until the skin was raw. The rope was still taut, pulling the body into the snow. The face was buried, but the eyes, 2 dark pits, stared up at the sky as if pleading for a rescue that would never come. The sight shattered the procedural calm that SAR training had drilled into me. I forced a breath, tried to keep my voice steady, and radioed back. "Medical team on scene. Need immediate extraction and a secondary medevac. Victims, possible trauma, severe hypothermia, unclear cause of death." The helicopter's rotors thumped overhead, its searchlight sweeping the slope. In the beam, we could see a second set of tracks, deeper than any ski boot, dragging across the snow in a chaotic zigzag pattern that led back toward the ridge. They were not human. The tread was jagged, as if made by something with talons. I felt the hairs on my arms rise, a primal alarm that no amount of "stay focused" could quiet. We set up a forward operating base, began the recovery, and I started the case report. Every detail mattered. The rope, the blood, the tracks, the way the wind seemed to whisper through the trees, carrying a faint, almost inaudible sob. My mind flicked to the missing hikers. Perhaps they'd been taken. Perhaps they'd never existed. The lines on the map blurred. Just as we were packing the bodies into stretchers, a crackle burst through the radio. "If anyone hears this, please, help. I'm still here, behind the ridge." The voice was a child's, warped by static, trembling with terror. I froze, heart hammering, eyes darting to the ridge where the wind seemed to shape itself into a mouth. The helicopter pulled away, its crew oblivious to the plea. I glanced at the last coordinates in my handheld, 14B, but the screen flickered, then went black. My breath hitched. In the distance, the faint outline of a figure emerged from the snow, hands outstretched, eyes glinting like frost. The radio died entirely, and a single sharp crack of a branch underfoot was the only sound left. I reached for my pistol, but a sudden heavy weight pressed on my shoulder. The darkness closed in, and the last thing I heard was the child's voice, a whisper from beyond the ridge. "You shouldn't have come." Story 2. The rain had turned the Pine Ridge backcountry into a sucking gray soup. My radio crackled with the static-laced voice of Incident Command. "K9 unit has a tentative track, but the weather's degrading visibility to under 50 meters. All teams, Proceed with extreme caution. Hypothermia is the primary threat. We were on day 3 of the search for 2 missing day hikers, a young couple, David and Chloe. The initial report was mundane, a simple wrong turn. But the forest here was old, deep, and unforgiving. Our sweep pattern was methodical, a slow, fanning grid. My partner, Lena, and I moved in tandem, our eyes scanning the duff for signs of a boot print, a discarded wrapper, a snapped branch. The first sign was wrong. Not a trigger, but a composition. A single perfect pile of flat stones, stacked into a small, unnatural cairn at the base of a dug fir. It was too deliberate, too clean. My SAR training screamed, unnatural feature. Possible sign. Do not disturb. We marked the GPS coordinate and moved on, the air growing colder, thicker. The cheerful calls of birds had vanished an hour ago, replaced by a suffocating silence broken only by our own crunching steps and the drip-drip from the canopy. Then we found the jacket. Not tossed aside, but arranged. David's olive green shell, from his pack photo, laid flat on a mossy log, as if waiting for its owner to return and put it on. The zipper was pulled exactly to the middle. Inside the pockets, a granola bar wrapper, still folded, a loaded spare cartridge for his bear spray, pristine, a single smooth riverstone. No blood, no tear, just a horrifying, curated emptiness. Lena's breath hitched. Who does this? Why? My stomach tightened. This wasn't an accident scene. This was a scene. A statement. We pressed deeper, the professional part of my brain fighting a rising tide of primal dread. We radioed in the find. Command's response was clipped. All business. Secure the item. Photograph. Continue grid expansion. The forest felt different now. Less empty, more observed. Every shadow behind a tree trunk seemed to linger a second too long. I caught motion out of the corner of my eye. Always just a sway of fern, a trick of the mist. My name, once, on the wind. I'd stop, hold my breath. Silence. We found the second item 100 meters further, off the main line of travel. Chloe's vibrant purple beanie. It was sitting on a smooth, flat rock, placed at the center of a ring of dark, damp leaves. But the beanie wasn't empty. Nestled inside it was a single, long, dark hair. Hers, from her pictures. And beside it, a perfect dried cone from a sugar pine. A offering? A message? To whom? The professional protocol was to document, bag, continue. But my mind was racing, painting pictures I couldn't control. This wasn't a struggle. This was a process. Someone or something had collected them. And they were collecting pieces of them, leaving these sterile, polite little altars in the dark. Lena's voice was a raw whisper over the radio. K9 just went off again, northwest of our position. But they're not tracking a scent trail. They're pointing. Like there's something static there. Something waiting. We moved toward the K9's alert, the weight in my pack, the bagged jacket, feeling less like evidence and more like a curse. The trees grew closer, the fog a palpable thing. I could see the glint of the dog handler's flashlight through the trunks. Then I heard it. Not through the radio, not in the wind. A soft, wet sound, like a boot pulling from deep mud. Right behind me. I froze, turning slowly. Lena was 10 paces back, her face illuminated by her own headlamp, her eyes wide with a terror I'd never seen in a seasoned SAR tech. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking past me, into the black wall of dripping cedar. And from that same impenetrable dark, a voice, faint and sia like dry leaves, spoke one word. My word. Tracker.